Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, the 21st of October, and you're here at Lunch and Learn. Richard's away today, as is Judy. Aaron is here, and I'm here. This is Rob. And today, Aaron's going to be talking about the New Mind software. He's going to go over a couple of things that we think might be of interest to people, but we will start by asking those of you in attendance here once he goes over something. He's going to also go over the New Mind YouTube channel, but we'll ask people to give us ideas of what is it that you would like to see him cover. What do you want us to talk about in regards to looking at the software and questions you have about how to use the training software. So, Aaron, it's all yours.
Thank you much, Rob. Appreciate it. Well, welcome everybody. I wanted to start today and just kind of bring up our YouTube page here. Dr. Suter and I were doing some talking the other day about switching it around a little bit, making some of the content easier to find. So we've added two additional playlists, excuse me, two additional playlists to the channel. So right at the very top now, when you get onto our page, you're going to see the EEG Basics playlist. So I really urge everybody, if you've got some extra time, maybe even if you're training yourself, these videos that Dr. Suter's done over the years, we've labeled it EEG Basics. So it's just really doing that. It's going through in-depth discussions on things like what is delta and what is theta. What does coherence tell us and dominant frequency, and you can kind of go through that playlist and see what's there. We still have our interesting videos playlist. These ones, for those of you maybe who haven't been on our channel, these are generally lunch and learns that we wanted to save. We thought it was really good information. Whatever discussion we were having that day, we wanted everyone to be able to hear when they had time. We still have our special speakers. I've added in a New Mind software training videos playlist. So I think this will be a good playlist that you guys can direct maybe a new clinician that you just hired in your office to. Let them sit. I'm going to be adding more content here, probably doing stuff like what I'm going to be doing today, just breaking down different pieces of the software. How do we use it? So there'll be more coming there. And then there's still the tutorial videos down here. So that's there for you. Feel free to go through those. A lot of good content there. When I first started, I spent probably the first 2 or 3 weeks on the job, just going through this YouTube page, getting myself familiar with it, so I could point you guys in the right direction. And I'll tell you, there is an amazing amount of content here. So that's there for you.
Aaron, this is Rodney. Can I give you a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah, so I have a website, and I'm just wondering if legally I can do that. Is some way to direct people that come to my website to want to know more about neurofeedback, particularly people doing home training, if I can direct them from my website when they're looking to go perhaps to something like the New Mind software training videos.
I don't see where there's a problem with that, Rodney. I can just double check that with Dr. Suter, make sure they don't have any issues. But yeah, I think that would be completely fine.
I don't sell anything, so I wouldn't be reselling your proprietary information. So just to clarify that, but I'm just really curious because I love what's there. It's awesome. And people come on and go, I went to your website, man, it's interesting. I want to know more about this neurofeedback. If I had the links to your wonderful videos, that would be a quicker way for them to go, or I can redirect them. It doesn't matter, but I think it would be easier if they're already there. But anyway, just thought I'd ask that.
Yeah, I will run that by up through the chain of command and I will get you an email probably by the end of today and just let you know.
Oh, okay. No hurry. I appreciate it. I'll let you go.
Not a
And
problem.
Aaron, I think one of the things to ask Richard too is whether people on their websites can just do a direct link, say, here's a professional video on the New Mind Home training, and then
Mm-hmm.
click on the link, and that way it just takes them right to that particular, versus the whole New Mind YouTube channel, just takes them to right to that video.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Yep.
Richard's okay with that, and I can't imagine he'd have any problems with that, but we'll check
Mm.
for you, Rodney, and go from there.
That's better said. That's what I meant. I didn't say it
Yeah,
very clearly. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Looking
no
for links
worries.
to direct videos then?
Yes, yes.
Sure. I will get that question asked for you, Rodney, and let you know. And I'll probably, what I'll probably do is just post it on the listserv. That way it's kind of out there that, we've given permission to do direct links if anybody wants to, and go from there.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate
You're welcome. All right, so one of the things Dr. Suter asked that I talk about was just our Photic menu. Since he just did a presentation on Photic the other day, he wanted to make sure everyone understood how to use that menu and all the different things that are in there. So I'm just we'll start a session up here so we can see all of our controls. Okay. So for those of you maybe who have not integrated Photic with neurofeedback, I do recommend it. I've worked personally using Photic with neurofeedback since I started in neurofeedback 12 years ago. The equipment I was using back then was heavily based in Photic. So I've seen how wonderful it can be. So I do urge you guys, if you never tried Photic, get a pair of glasses. I would recommend getting white, since the white glasses are emotionally neutral. Those would be the best option. Just so you know, there are other colors of Photic. You can do blues. Blues offer a calming effect to your clients. Reds are more emotionally related. Greens, kind of a nice neutral in between. It's kind of a balance between blue and yellow. Yellow is a very excitatory color. It's generally not a color I would recommend using with clients. So I would urge everyone to kind of stay away from yellow for the most part. And I say that because yellow Photic glasses, because they are such an excitatory color, sometimes we have clients that don't present with any sleep issues or any anxiety. It's kind of underlying, maybe a coming attraction symptom. And you put yellow glasses on them, and all of a sudden they're not sleeping. Um, they start experiencing anxiety-related symptoms. So that's generally why I recommend staying away from yellow, but blue can be a really good choice to have in your clinic to work with your anxiety patients. It does offer a nice, gentle calming effect. So just keep that in mind as you start kind of exploring Photic, that you can try different colors. Now, once you decide, what color you're going to use, you'll go into our entrainment menu here. And our wonderful software engineers have made our lives easy by pre-programming the recommended Photic frequencies into each individual protocol. So when you, let's say, build a training plan, let's say you're going to use maybe protocol number 4, those Photic frequencies that Dr. Suter has requested for each protocol have been programmed in. So we really don't need to adjust the left and the right side. And And just if you don't know how our Photic glasses work, you do have 4 LEDs surrounding each eye. The 2 LEDs that sit to the left of each eye, that's going to be the left eye field. The 2 LEDs that sit to the right side of the eye is going to be the right eye field. And keep in mind that the left eye field is activating the right hemisphere. So you've got those left eye field, the optic nerves at the back. That optic nerve from the left crosses over to the right posterior side of the brain. So that's coming back into the occipital on the right side and then traveling up. Same right eye field crosses over to the left hemisphere, comes into the back at O1 and stimulates the brain that way. So if you're going to be adjusting these frequencies, just understand that if you're adjusting the left side, you will be affecting the right hemisphere of your client's brain. If you're adjusting the right side, that's going to be adjusting the left hemisphere. So, why maybe would you need to know that? And let's just say you're going to be doing an asymmetry protocol. So we've got maybe a protocol 18 or a protocol 20 loaded up. We're working, let's say our client's primary symptom was depression. So we're trying to affect the alpha asymmetry. And with Photic, that's putting in, let's say, a 12 hertz into the proper side, you're going to be able to encourage the brain to produce more alpha in the right hemisphere where it belongs. Now, your particular client may not respond the best to the frequencies that have been programmed in here. So as you train them, you can actually adjust our Photic on the fly. So if you're running, let's say that protocol 18, you notice their alpha asymmetry down here is in the red, indicating that their alpha is still left hemisphere dominant, and you're trying to encourage it to get back over to the right side. You can adjust this through the alpha range to try to boost that alpha back into the right side. So that's one way of kind of playing around with this Photic menu while they train. Now, the other thing we need to understand is that there is multiple different ways of introducing Photic to your client. So by the default setting, we see here that it says that we're in manual mode. And what manual mode is it's just going to flash whatever frequencies we have here at a consistent brightness, and that's what this slider's for. So we can go all the way down to 1%, which is going to be a very, very dim light for your client. By default, it's at 9, which isn't too terribly bright. If you get up into this higher range at 18, that's extremely bright. I wouldn't recommend going that high. 9 for me is pretty bright. I like a dimmer light myself. I like somewhere down, in this 2 and 3 range. But you can do that. Now, this is not ideally the best Photic protocol to use. Dr. Suter's done the research, and over the years, he's found that proportional feedback is going to be the best option. And what the proportional does is it's kind of like offering another kind of feedback stream to your client. And if you guys ever need to know what all of these different ones do, like dichotomous or alternating, our software developers have put this little question mark here off to the side. If you click on that, they're giving you an explanation of what each one is. So again, here we see with the manual, we're just adjusting the Photic parameters manually. So that would be their brightness. So here's the proportional. So the proportional is going to incrementally increase as amplitude training threshold is approximated and then exceeded, and decrease incrementally as the amplitude falls below the training threshold. So what does that mean? So let's just start this up And let's watch the photic here. So once this gets going, I might have to, it's actually, I've been playing around. Let me just discard this real quick and get back in. So what's going to happen when you set it to proportional is the brightness of the glasses is going to be activated by your thresholds over here. Let's go ahead and get that set back up. So there we go. So now you're going to see that that brightness is going to change here as they train. So as these thresholds come up closer, so in this case, let's say we're taking the 15 to 20 hertz up. So as the power of this mid beta gets closer to the threshold, the brightness of the glasses will increase and then continue to increase as they cross over that threshold. And it'll be just the opposite with any frequency band that you're inhibiting. So with like the 2 to 12 hertz here, as if they're up here, as they bring that power level down, the closer they get to threshold, the brighter those glasses are going to get, and then they'll continue to increase as they cross over the threshold. Now, when we go into something like dichotomous, so dichotomous is more of just an off on. It's not going to gradually ramp the brightness of the glasses up and down. It's just going to be an on and an off. And if we read the definition for that, it's going to tell us that the photic stimulation will initiate as training threshold is exceeded. So that means they have to get past the threshold in the direction we're asking them to. So either, with a reward, they have to cross up above it. If we're doing an inhibit, they would have to cross under it, and then that photic would activate. So we'll follow the research Dr. Suter's done, and it is recommended that you keep the photic entrainment set to a proportional. And at any time here, if anybody has any specific questions about the software that they want me to talk about, feel free to just jump in, and I will switch gears and answer those. So if there's no questions on the photic, I think that's kind of self-explanatory. A lot of the protocols are, since you can just go in and see the definitions for yourself, but I would suggest checking it out, playing around with it. For those of you maybe who haven't seen this button before, our software is also tied in with Zucore Games. If you send us an email, we have a Word document that we can send you. Zucore Interactive Games has agreed to give all of you 2 of their games to try out, which is Sport and Carnival. So if you want to play around with the Zucore games, shoot us an email. You can send it directly to me if you want. At Erin, E-R-I-N, at newmindtech.com. You could send it to support. We'll get it, or put it up on the listserv, and I'll see it there. And we can get you those. They're kind of fun to play around with. Now, before we
Aaron,
get started,
very quickly, I just want to confirm that FP1 is the left eye, right? That's going to the right occipital area. And FP2 is the right eye going to the left occipital area.
With optic nerves, you've got 2 nerve receptors in each eye. You've got a left eye field and a right eye field. So when we're saying like left eye field, that left eye field crosses over to the right hemisphere. It's not necessarily FP1 or FP2 because that's prefrontal cortex. This is in the eyes, and I don't see if somewhere I think I have a document. I can actually just look it up here. Because that is sometimes a concept you need to see.
Yeah, so FP1 filter, I know I may have missed you saying this earlier. FP1 filters, that's on the left of the screen, is talking about your, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, so that's what I thought it was, right. Okay, that's nice.
So in our Photic glasses, when you see those, you'll have two LEDs sitting to the left of the eye, and you'll have two LEDs sitting to the right of the eye. So we have the left visual field, and we see, so as the lights on the left visual field come in through the eye, those are going to cross over and hit this nerve receptor on the right side of the eye. That information, that photic light, will be carried down that optic nerve, and they're coming in here at O2 and then cascading up through the brain. And then the right eye field crosses over and hits this nerve receptor on the left side of the eye. And then we see that being carried down here, coming in at O1, and then moving up through the brain. So with our software, I'll just leave that there. Can't get them both at the same time. Let's see. There we go.
That picture explains it really well. Thank you.
Okay, so that made sense. Okay, so yeah, so in our software, developers have placed here right hemisphere. So just know that, you know, when you're adjusting this one, you're going to be affecting the right hemisphere of their brain. And when you adjust the right side, you're actually adjusting the left hemisphere. I clear that up?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm going to stop this. So Rob and I were talking that might be a good thing to just touch on tracking sessions and how we do that in the new Mind software. So at the end of every session, the software is going to save all the data. So I'll just back out here. So anybody that's on the webinar that's kind of really new, you know, as you train your clients, if you need to go in and track how they've been doing, you can just click on their training plan, click view plan details, and then you're going to have a bunch of things you can go through and look at. You can look at their trend lines, you can look at their performance, asymmetry, the activation, which is slow to fast wave ratio. As you're looking through these, you have a drop down here. So every session they've ever done on this particular training plan, you'll be able to go through. You can cycle through those using the arrows at the top. But one thing I wanted to touch on was this screen here, because I don't know if it's been talked about a lot and if people really understand how to use it, but these are at the bottom, these are the three basic metrics we're looking at to track progress with our clients. So we have layering, compression, and convergence. Now, with layering, we want the layering line as high as possible. We want our compression and our convergence lines as low as possible. Now, the point scale up here is a combination of all three of these metrics added together. So the better they do on all three of them, the higher their points are going to be. So what are these three different things we're looking at? So layering is looking at, are there trend lines layered in the proper order? So I'm going to jump back here. We're going to bring up our filters. And we've listed the frequencies here in an eyes open distribution of power. So human brains with our eyes open, delta should always be the dominant power, theta below that, followed by alpha, and then our beta is at the bottom. So we generally say, delta should be about 12 microvolts plus or minus 4. We've got theta coming in at around 10 plus or minus 4. Alpha is going to be generally 9 plus or minus 4, and our betas are going to be around 5 to 6 microvolts plus or minus 2. So this is how we should see these trend lines ordered. And in this case, they are layered pretty well. We see we have delta at the top, then we have theta, we've got alpha. The betas are still a little confused down here. High beta is a little bit above what the mid beta is, but all in all, they're layered in the proper order. So if you were to be reviewing a client's training session and you see, your layering lines way down here, that very well could be maybe when you come and look at the trend line, their alpha is dominating the playing field, which would cause an issue with their layering. So we can track that as a train, and see if all the frequency bands are finding their way in the proper order. The next thing we're looking at is compression. So a lot of times the protocols we're choosing to train our clients, generally they're going to have some slow wave frequency coming down with a increase. You'll always have an increase of mid beta in the left side. That's all 24 of our protocols are designed that way. That's always just to keep that left hemisphere running faster than the right, keep them out of an anxiety state. And then we're either normally bringing up an alpha or a low beta. So the fact that we are, let's just say we'll take a protocol 4, for example, that's bringing delta and theta down. We've got a mid beta and a low beta coming up. So with a protocol like that, over time, we're going to be asking this delta and theta to decrease in power while simultaneously we're pushing the beta up slightly, meaning that we're trying to compress this whole thing together. We're trying to see that our delta and our theta lines are coming down. We'll get a mild increase in mid beta. Betas don't move around too much. A couple microvolt change normally. So as they train with something like a protocol 1, 2, 4, anything bringing a slow wave down, fast wave up, we would start seeing this compression line moving down. Now you can see here, like at, let's just say this is at the 8-minute mark, we see their compression came up, where we want it down here, like where it was at the 6, or actually really want it down here. But we can see that if we go back and look at the trend lines at the 6-minute mark and at the 8-minute mark, well, there's the 6-minute, we have a compression. We've got that slow wave frequency coming down, getting closer to the betas. And then here they cycle back out. And at that 8-minute mark, we see that delta just kind of rising back up. And that's what's affecting the compression here. So this is as the delta and thetas came down, and here's as the delta and thetas came back up and moved down and back up. So they just kind of oscillated through the whole session here. Now the last line down here is convergence. And what convergence is looking at is each individual frequency band. And I'm going to take some out of here. So if you didn't know you could do this, you can just click on them, get rid of whatever you don't want to see, activate them all. So when we look at convergence, this would be ideally almost perfect convergence. So we're looking at solid line being alpha in the left hemisphere, dotted line being alpha in the right hemisphere. And we can see that they're doing the exact same thing. They're doing a nice little dance together. As one rises, so does the other. And as they fall in power, they're doing it together. Versus that. Now they're still rising and falling, but we see that separation between them. So the convergence isn't as good here in delta as it is in the alpha. We can see there's theta. Convergence is out still slightly. Our betas, we get good convergence. It drifts a little. So over time, as we train them, we're going to be looking to see kind of is the left hemisphere doing the same as the right. There's our high beta back in. And as we train them, the longer we train them, we should see that this convergence is moving down. So again, you want your layering as high as possible. You want your compression and convergence as low as possible. Now,
Aaron, can I ask you a question on that?
sure, please.
Yes. So on the just interesting point on the convergence, when both sides are lined up together, right and left, can you put that in terms of like communication between the two hemispheres? Is that a possible word? That might be a question for Dr. Suter. I don't know.
I think that would be either Dr. Suter or maybe Rob's got some information on that as far as how that ties in. It's a great question.
Can you repeat the question again, and I'll try to see if I can answer it. Rodney, ask
I'm
again.
thinking about if I think sometimes about the right hemisphere, right or wrong, being more oriented towards our feelings and emotions versus our logical side on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
When you have convergence and you have the alphas are right on top of one another,
Yeah.
I like to think about that as if they are communicating, and you're not just getting a logical side, approach side, you're also getting a communication with feeling aspects. It's kind of like mixing, I hate to say it, like the prefrontal cortex with the limbic system. That's a gross.
Yeah, gotcha. I would want to have Richard answer this for you as well, but my best sense is from sessions I've run, when the lines are close together and converging well, there's not sort of anything unusual going on. Things are as they should be. If one side's elevated more than the other and the convergence isn't good, then it could be that they're thinking about something that could be more positive or negative or emotionally upsetting or whatever. And then sometimes you'll see when that happens, even the theta on that side tends to do something different with the alpha. But let's, Aaron, put that down as a question for Richard to follow up on when he gets back.
Yeah, and we'll have them
Yeah.
We'll have them talk about that maybe
Yeah.
Monday night or on the Wednesday lunch and learn.
Yeah. Yeah. But Rodney, when you see that, sometimes what I'll do is I'll pause the session and I'll ask the patient, I'll say, it looks like your alpha's a bit high in your thinking, what are you thinking about? And that gives you a sense whether it's just busy mind or something emotional. And that's one of the things that I tend to do to try to get clarity with trend screens like that.
Yep, I have a CPA that has a very, very, very high alpha, and it's like he's always doing his to-do list. So now he does his to-do list. He does his mentally. So now he learned to do his to-do list before he starts his sessions, and they go a lot.
Good for him. You trained him
track.
well.
Yeah.
You trained him well.
We got a long way to go, but anyway, so thank you. That helps me quite a bit more just to get a sense of kind of what we're
Good.
kind of thinking about with convergence. So thanks for that.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah. So this is Hilda Jameson. I just wanted to add something also to what you just said. I've also seen it, the convergence really way off with kids that have developmental issues. So we're not talking just about one component band that's really off, like maybe alpha or so, but it's the whole component bands. I mean, the whole spectrum. the whole EEG. So I'm wondering too, what can you do to help that? So again, it would be great to be able to see that on the convergent that that's the case. But in addition to that, what can we do to actually fix it? How does the feedback from what we're seeing now, the layering, the conversion, and the compression, how then can we use this as a way to be more effective in training? How do we adjust the protocols? For example, with convergence, I see a lot of times that the whole component band, the whole EEG on the left is way higher than the right. Does that mean then, again, if the convergence is off, I can change the thresholds on the left and push it down more? Is that the strategy, or what do we do? And you just try to bring the right up and the left down. So that's kind of another additional question for Dr. Suter I would like to add.
Yeah, I think we could probably have Dr. Suter spend an entire session, possibly, or at least the beginning of a session, just going over that, and actually record it so we can post it and get all of those questions answered. Give you guys a chance to ask him and maybe some examples of some clients and see what he has to say.
Well, one of the things just to add to that is that I have a lot of home training clients, so I look after their sessions a lot of times, and it's so nice to have all these parameters to monitor their progress. So boy, this is a great subject line. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, and that's Rob and I were.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that's a good question, because there may be no definitive answer to optimizing the brain's homeostasis, except in the context, as Rob said, of the particular patient's application. So that if we take examples of why super geniuses have probably a little more left brain in order to get to where they got, doesn't mean to say that that's going to be at all stages of their life, at all tests, at all times. So I just wanted to say, we don't want Dr. Suter to have to reinvent the wheel of what the optimized homeostasis is for each individual.
Point. And we will definitely have him talk about that. Give you guys all a chance to input your information and ask him questions. And Rodney, what you had talked about with the home training is kind of what Rob and I were talking about before we started everything up, is that now that a lot of clinics are utilizing the home training, you or your technicians potentially don't have that twice a week contact that you would, or more, that you would have when they're coming into your clinic, to really kind of talk about what's going on. And these performance metrics are kind of the tool that you guys can use to really see what's going on during all of that. One thing Rob wanted me to touch on, that's a question that comes up quite a bit, is this training efficiency. So I think a lot of us, have a tendency of maybe getting hung up on this as far as what numbers should be there. Now, keep in mind, if you don't know what any of these are on the screen, you can just click on them, and our software developers have given you a definition. So training efficiency is just looking at how frequently they're meeting the criteria of the protocol you designed. So in the protocol I've got up on the screen, this is just our standard 2-channel training protocol. Now, keep in mind, we've got 4 different things that we're asking their brain to do. So the more things, more thresholds you add into a protocol, naturally, the lower this training efficiency number is going to be. And you guys may have already seen this, where you start your client off with a 1-channel SMR at CZ. And in a case like that, their brain only has one requirement to meet, and that is just to increase SMR at CZ. So when you're using a one-channel protocol, and especially if you've only got, let's say, one threshold in there, you're not inhibiting anything, you're just rewarding that SMR, it would be very common to see your training efficiency up 60 or 70.
I've
Now,
even seen it go up into the hundreds. So that's where I think adjusting that threshold, if I can chime in there, Aaron, the default setting for the NewMind software is 75% threshold.
yes.
So if you start a session with that and you're in a one-channel session and it's down, say, below 50, it might be that it's a bit too hard. So what you really want to do is also pay attention, as you can see here, and he's got it highlighted, whether your target, which is your setting, is being met by the success rate. Next to it, beta up, target 75, success rate 72. It's not meeting it. So you may want to make that one a little bit easier, maybe make it 80%. On the channel 2, your target 75 and you're hitting 98% success rate, good to go. But notice the SM, the 13 to 15 up is not mating it at the 75%, it's 70. So maybe you want to make that one a little bit easier, make it 80. And if you make it easier, then that training efficiency is going to go up no matter what you're doing, 1, 2, or 4 channel trainings, if that helps any.
Yes. And that's, you can see here, and the last time I was on here presenting, I was talking about, adjusting target percentages and exactly what Rob was saying in relationship to success percentages. To me, moving over to NewMind software after using BioExplorer for over a decade, this made me so happy. This is something that I always kind of wanted in BioExplorer. Was never able to really produce it. So when I was adjusting target percentages in BioExplorer, I had to just watch trend lines. If I made an adjustment, made it easier, made it harder, did my trend line start moving more in the direction that I wanted it to go? With the NewMind software now, you can see I moved this target percentage to just a ridiculously low percentage. You would never want to train somebody down here at 31%, but you can see, because I dropped that down so low, you can see how the success percentage has just plummeted. We only have 29% success rate. So as you guys train your clients, like Rob said, you can watch these success percentages. If they're sitting low, you want to just raise it up. So the higher this target percentage, the easier you're making it on your client. The lower the percentage, the harder. So if I go up to like 85, I know Rob's a big fan of training up around more than the 85 range. Dr. Suter, his preference is more down at 75. There isn't a right and wrong here. Just keep that in mind. It's all about your client and what their brain's capable of. I noticed back when I was training in a clinic, if I had elderly clients coming in, their brains tend to be a little bit more rigid. Also, a lot of them didn't eat well. They would come in with empty stomachs. They were shallow breathers, so their brain really didn't have all the resources it needed to excel at neurofeedback. So if I had started them at a target percentage of 85, sometimes I actually saw no change session to session. Their first 2 or 3 sessions would just all look the same. So I would raise them up across the board to 90. And as soon as I brought them up to 90 across the board, all of a sudden I started seeing that movement. Now, on the opposite side of that, I had some younger clients, in the 20-year-old range, extremely healthy. They worked out, played sports, You know, they were eating a good diet. And I had one in particular, as a 21-year-old male. Mom had brought him in, and I started playing with his target percentage one day, and I'd taken him all the way down to 65 across the board. And it seemed every time I would go 5% lower, you know, and at that point, I think with him, I was training his delta down. So I think when we started, he was up like 14 to 16 microvolts, if I remember right. And I made the first adjustment from 85% down to 80, and I watched that line just dip down, you know, about 3 more microvolts. And then I moved another 5%, and I saw it dip down again, you know, and I stopped at 65. Figured that was enough. I didn't have the success percentage really to tell me, but I could see in his trend lines that things were moving in the right direction. Now, I did check in with him on his next appointment, and I made sure that he wasn't mentally wiped out for more than about 30 to 60 minutes after the session, which he wasn't. He said he felt great when he got home. He wasn't tired. He wasn't mentally fatigued. So we trained him there, and he trained beautiful. And we actually got him through kind of neurofeedback a little quicker, in my opinion, than what we would have if I left him up at 85%. You know, his brain was just kind of, I think Dr. Suter mentioned this before, you know, his brain was more of in that peak performer realm. You know, it needed to be pushed. It wanted to be pushed. And, you know, his trend lines definitely showed that. You know, so now you can see here after we kind of moved that target percentage back up to 85, we gave it a few minutes to pull in, average some more data. You know, now we've got them up to a 95% success rate.
So, yeah, what I do, Aaron, is I start most people off at 85 in their first few sessions because I want them to succeed. I want them to get something and succeed and not work them too hard. And then once I'm watching those success rates and those thresholds staying where they're supposed to be, and then, you know, when it's up at 90 and it's set at 85, then I'm going to be taking it down to 80. And eventually I work everybody down to 70 or 75. But I always start easy to make sure they have some success with their first session and not work them too hard. But that's just a preference.
Yeah, I was the same. I always did at least the first session as a baseline. You know, I didn't adjust anything. I didn't play with target percentages or reward percentages, however you want to talk about those. But yeah, I was always a fan. I wanted to get them, you know, just into the process, and then a session or two in, I would do the same thing. That's when I started moving things around, trying to, you know, improve on, you know, the settings to get them in the optimal training. So, you know, we can see here, and so we were kind of talking about that training efficiency. So you can improve this number by just, you know, adjusting these targets. You know, the higher the success percentages, you know, the higher this training efficiency number is going to be. Now this one's not looking too good for a 2-channel. In a 2-channel, ideally we would like to see this, you know, maybe, you know, a good number would be up in the 18 to 20 range. You know, would be a really good training efficiency for a 2-channel. This training efficiency number we're seeing right now is more what we would expect to see in a 4-channel protocol.
I agree.
So,
typically, those are a little bit below 5, and typically the single channels are usually about 50 or better. And the 2 channels, like you said, between 5.0 and 30 is the range you want to be in, and that you know 20 20 range is probably an ideal 15 to 20.
does anybody have any last minute questions? We're getting right here close to the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Can you point to what Rob was just talking about on the success and target, and go through that just one more time? That was interesting.
Yeah, so put a little spotlight, a little highlighter here. So you've got for every threshold, you've got a success percentage and you've got a target percentage. So target percentage, and when I was dealing with BioExplore, we used to refer to it as a reward percentage. So the higher this target percentage is, the easier you're making it on the client. And what this is actually controlling is this threshold line. So when we increase this, it's giving this threshold more wiggle room. So in this case, let's see if I can kind of show you here. So if I take this up to, and I'm going to go up considerably high, I'll go up into the 90% range. So what that's going to do at 90% is when this 2 to 12 hertz increases in power, it's going to allow this threshold line to move more freely and get out of the way of the power, making it easier on the client by not like forcing them to stay, at 12 microvolts. The lower I move this target percentage, it's like putting an emergency brake on this threshold. The lower I go, the more I'm putting that brake on, and I'm not allowing their brain activity to manipulate this threshold as much. So it's the lower the target percentage, the more this threshold is going to stay firmly put and not get pushed out of the way, which will make it a lot more difficult. It's just like if I were to go to a manual setting and bring them down, let's say here to 11, just over 11 microvolts, we're going to see in a matter of like a couple minutes, as the software averages this out more, this success percentage is going to start plummeting, because we're not giving them that opportunity, for this to move around. That's why it's generally not recommended to put them into a manual mode, because you have the tendency of just over exhausting that brain, and you're just making it work harder than what it really should. It's just you're going to be consuming a lot of resources trying to do that. So you adjust your target percentage in the filter options here. It's all the way at the top. You'll see there's the 90%. So I can back that down. There's Rob's starting point at 85. And then you can watch as you set that target percentage, you're going to be watching over the next couple minutes of what happens to their success percentage. And again, you want to keep it up fairly high. You want to give them that opportunity, to succeed in doing that. And so there we can see it just moved up to 88%. That's a good percentage right there. Now, as you train your clients, if you want to try to push them a little harder, see if you can get some more change out of them, then my recommendation is I do 5% changes. So here we're at an 88% success rate with a target percentage of 85. So if I wanted to make this a little harder, I would go 5% at a time. So I'd move it to 80. And then I'm going to have to wait roughly maybe 2 minutes to see how that affected them. So I'll look back here in about 2 minutes and see where that's at. Now, if I dropped it to 80% and all of a sudden this success percent, let's say it dropped to 65%. At that point, I know, okay, 80% is too difficult for this person. Then I'm going to just bring it back up to 85, and that's going to be the number for that particular threshold for that client. Now, the great thing too that I love that our software developers did is as you start moving around this target percentage and dialing in each specific client, the software is going to remember the last target percentage you used with them. So it's not something you need to adjust every single day from that point on. You know, you can spend, you know, one session with your client, you know, of course, like Rob and I were talking about, you know, I would always recommend doing at least one session as a baseline, maybe starting them like Rob does at 85. That way, you know how their brain's going to respond. And then, you know, their second or third session, you can come in and start dialing these target percentages in. And then the software will just remember that. So as you train them, you know, hopefully their brain's, you know, fairly consistent on a day-to-day basis. So you won't have to move them around, but, you know, keep in mind, you know, if you've got a client, let's say, you know, you've moved them all down to, you know, their numbers, maybe this one's at 70%, you got this one at 75, maybe these were where they're at. And they've been training that way and training rather well for, you know, weeks on end. Don't forget, if your client comes in after a really bad night's sleep, you're going to probably have to adjust those target percentages because they're probably not going to do that, you know, too well that day. Also, keep in mind things like a bad night of sleep is going to drastically affect their training efficiency, and it's also going to drastically change their point scale. So for those of you that are doing a lot of home training sessions, you probably have already recognized that you have the option of allowing your home trainers to see session results when their home training session is over. And this is what they would see when you allow that. Keep in mind that you might get a panic call one day if you allow those session results where the client calls you and says, hey, I've been averaging, you know, 60, 70, 80 points, you know, on all my sessions. And all of a sudden today I only had 10 points, or maybe I had no points at all. You know, is my brain broken? What's going on? Is the equipment broken? I've heard a ton of different things. Ask them what was your sleep like the night before? If you've modified their diet, maybe you discovered they have a gluten sensitivity. You remove the gluten out of their diet, and the night before, they just said, to heck with it, I want pizza, and I don't want the gluten-free stuff. I want me a good old-fashioned, you know, gluten-laden pizza. So they ate that, and now all of a sudden, all of that excess of gluten they ate caused a massive surge of delta from inflammation. Their points are going to be rock bottom. You know, same with a bad night's sleep. Anything that would, you know, affect, let's say, all their slow wave activity, and, you know, that might affect them for a day or two. So you really have to remember, if you're going to allow your home trainer clients to see session results, please make sure they understand that neurofeedback is not linear. It's very non-linear. A lot of different things in their day-to-day life can affect their brain activity. And it's not going to be uncommon for them to have a couple sessions here or there where their points are really low. So I just wanted to mention that because, you know, that allowing your home trainers to see their session results can be a real blessing for some of them. For other of your home training clients, it could be a nightmare for you because they might be calling your office every other day wondering, you know, why these points are all over the place. So just kind of setting expectations with them, if you're going to allow them to see them, would be recommended.
Aaron, this has been excellent. So really appreciate this. I'm sorry we're out of time. I'd like to listen to you for another 30 minutes.
We are out. I'm assuming
we can do this. We can do part two, Rodney. If there's more questions, folks, let us know. If this is interesting and you want to have it extended, just email on the listserv, say, can we do more on this topic? And we'll set it up again.
Sounds great. Thank you both.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye, everybody. See you Monday.